Right, so we are still on the producty and focus sort of things, and with this video I want to focus on the green Betaine groundbait, which has been another one of the new additions that Pel's come up with over the cold, miserable winter that we've had. But this was all about focusing on the current obsession, or how it's been for the last donkey's years, on commercials with the groundbait in the edge and groundbait on the far bank. Pretty much groundbait in shallow water for me. I mean, it's definitely got its other uses. Simon's had a play with it quite a bit, using it for sort of a fish meal based skimmer mix, and it's massively popular and that sort of thing. But for me, what I was after was just the right sort of groundbait that I was using for mudline fishing when I'm at the lakes of Partridge, coming places like this at Cudmore, fishing down the edge. Anywhere I want to fish groundbait in shallow water, I wanted just a fish meal, darky green sort of colour that isn't going to stand out, and it's just right for what you want it to do. You know what I mean? Nice, plain, basic, does the job, but massively high quality, so it's mega attractive and brings them fish in just what I want it to do. But for me, what I want to talk about today is using it in the correct manner. Yeah, I've spoken about groundbait on many videos before, and I'm a big believer it's got to be mixed in the right way, just for the application you want it for. I mean, gone are the days of having fizzy groundbaits active all over the place with bits all over your peg. Now it's all about setting traps and having nice little tight piles. And so what I want to do is run through the way I mix it, and then we're also going to have a little fish, catch a few fish with it, just so I can show you what I want to use it for and its right uses. So we are pretty much onto the mixing. And as I've said before, I think we did it back in a skimmer video when it comes to mixing. I think I was using ground expander pellets for my skimmers. And with this, it's no different. I mix it in exactly the same way, in that all I do is completely overwet my groundbait, make it into almost a sloppy paste-like consistency, and leave it. Yeah, simply it looks like it's messed up. Add water to the groundbait so you don't go it vice versa and mess it up. But by adding water, keep going till it's a nice sloppy mixture that's almost looks ruined, and then put it to the side for 15 minutes, and I promise by whacking that through the riddle, you achieve pretty much the perfect groundbait that's really overwetted. All the particles are sucked in as much as they can, and I know that's going to go straight to the bottom and be pretty much inert. It's got very few, there's no active ingredients in the groundbait, so it's going to go straight to the bottom and sit there in the lovely tight pile, which is what I want to achieve. And say, once it's whizzed through that riddle, it's just a lovely, nice, fluffy mix that goes in my pot, comes out my pot really quickly, which we're going to show you in a minute, and does exactly the job that I'm after. So with that babbled about, I'm going to have a little demonstration, and we're hopefully going to catch a few fish with it. So I get to have a little play now and catch a few fish. I'd say there's definitely a few little things when it comes to feeding groundbait in the edge, say, or across. It's all about being in shallow water for me, and it's pretty much replicated what you're doing, whether it's far bank or close. And it's all about keeping that tight pile. I mean, I'm not into big pots and creating bait all over the place. What I'm after is a really tight pile, same as what we do when we're fishing micros in the edge, but in this case with ground bait, just sort of that wafts away a bit quicker. So micros can be great when I'm attracting big fish, but in today's case, when it's little F1s and little pasty things, little lovely ones, I like the fact that there's a bit of chaos in the peg because they're smaller fish, and with ground bait it gets distributed all over the place really quick, so there's never a build up of bait. It's all disappearing really quickly because there's that many crazy little mouths down there. Well, there definitely is across. Hopefully it's going to be the same down the edge where we're going to have a go. I'm not going to babble about rig-wise. It's typical mudline style rigs. I mean, I've got a nice heavy flow, a little bit finer than what we normally go for because it's little fish in this case, with a big bulk close to me, 3 or 4 inches away from the hook. And in this case, I've got a green expander on, just to blend in. I mean, hook bait is irrelevant. It's entirely up to you, but I like something that blends in. So a nice little green expander, or maybe a couple of maggots, it fits in nice. But what it's all about is how this bait leaves the pot. So I've got my bait really heavy, I mean over wetted ground bait, but there's been riddled, so it's got no big lumps in. And literally what I'm going to do is fill my pot, tap it in, and then literally, because that's squozen down that much and the way the pot is, it'll put down a pellet of ground bait on the bottom. And the way I'm going to put that in, I'm going to achieve pretty much that once it's broken down, probably into a 2-inch square on the bottom, so it's a lovely, tight, accurate little pile that I've got to present my bait over and hopefully catch a fish. It's just almost the perfect way of fishing down the edge when they're coming in quickly to your bait, but at the same time you don't want them big pots to overfeed them. So that is good to go. We're going to whiz down that edge. I'm going to set my trap and hopefully nail a fish nice and quick. So with bait in the pot and rig ready to go, what I want to do now is introduce this pile into the peg, and so with the way the ground bait's been mixed, and because it's got a heavier grain ground bait that's going to suck in lots and lots of that water, what I want is it to sink as fast as possible without breaking up. So the last thing I want for this sort of thing is a cloudy mix. Let's get him in. Fish left the peg already then. Well, that's looking good. It's a cloudy mix that breaks up on the way down, descends, just makes it a bait all over the place. I want a really, really heavy wet mix that gets all the way to the bottom, pretty much in that pellet form that it leaves the cup. And in turn creates the tightest pile possible on the bottom without particles and bits and bobs wafting all over the place. So it's creating that perfect sort of trap, that method feeder effect that we always talk about when we're setting traps in the edge. With like that one did the job. There was no mucking about with that one. And you can see the commotion there that's still left. There's that much water getting stirred up once we've hooked one that there is no way there is any bait left in a pile, nothing worthwhile for them fish to eat in that area, just because it's gone. You know what I mean? It can't be, because we're feeding such a small amount but so accurately, which means we get a bite nice and quick, and it makes it very, very easy. That's a big F1 for Cudmore. That's a massive F1 to manage the peg. Lovely one, bitch, like that. And that is the perfect sort of example what I'm after for setting traps with a ground bait for me. And it gives me a nice mix that I can keep on feeding all day without fear of overfeeding my peg, because I'm putting that small trap in every single go. I'd say probably 50% of it just gets wafted away every time I've missed a bite, hooked a fish, whatever. So there's no chance of messing my peg up by overfeeding it. So definitely for me, this is my go-to ground bait now for all my shallow water fishing. So it's just that right sort of colour, the right sort of grain, the way it mixes, and you can put a load of water into it, which that would probably be the key problem with a lot of ground baits that were too sticky and too messy, that they just wouldn't go down right and do what you wanted them to do when they get on the bottom. With this stuff, it just goes down, sits there, and ultimately it's there until I get a bite. I can start that peg all over again. But I'm going to carry on now and catch a few more fish, because I'm enjoying this and I don't want to go home yet.